Hi friends, Tony here with another fun crochet tutorial. Today we're making my new braided Tunisian ear warmer. It's a fast, beginner-friendly project and you probably already have the yarn for it in your stash. I'll take you step by step through the process and you'll be done in no time. If you enjoy crochet tutorials, product reviews, and yarn giveaways, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. To make our ear warmer, we'll need a few supplies. First, you'll need about 170 yards of worsted weight yarn. For my ear warmer, I'm using Red Heart's new Heat Wave. It's a 100% acrylic yarn that can generate up to 12 additional degrees of heat just from UV rays, which I think is pretty cool. It's currently available at Joann, and I've got a link right to it in the description below. In addition to our yarn, we're also going to need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. A straight hook is fine, or you can use a Tunisian crochet hook, whichever you prefer. And we're going to need a tape measure. Some additional supplies you'll also need are 7 locking stitch markers, a clipboard, and blocking supplies. So to get started, we're going to need to prepare our yarn to work it double, which means we're going to hold 2 strands of yarn together throughout our project. Now you can do that a couple different ways. You can find the end on the outside and the end on the inside and hold those together. I personally prefer to create 2 separate balls of yarn, and I'll do that by just making a cake with my yarn ball winder, or you can just make 2 separate balls of yarn. I'm going to include a link to my video on how to make a cake with a ball winder. So now I have my 2 cakes of yarn, and I'm going to find the ends of them and I'm going to hold them together. So we're going to hold 2 strands of yarn together throughout this project. And the reason I like to do that is because it makes sure your ear warmer is nice and thick and warm, because that's what we're going for. Okay, so now you'll want to grab your hook. We're going to start with a slip knot. So we're just going to make a loop and pull through just like that. Grab our hook. We're going to put it through here. And now we're going to chain 16. So we're just going to yarn over our hook and pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through until we have 16. So now we're going to pick up our loop. So we're going to flip to work on the back side of our chain, and you can see this little ridge of bumps going down the middle of our chain. So we're going to find the second bump, which is right here, and we're going to insert our hook underneath that bump. Make sure you're grabbing both loops. Use that fingertip if you need to. Get under there, yarn over, pull up the loop, and leave that loop on our hook. And we're going to do that for each bump down, and by the end we should have 16 loops on our hook. So again, find the bump, going under both strands of yarn, yarn over and pull up the loop. One more time, insert, yarn over, and pull up the loop. So that's 4, and we're going to keep going all the way down our chain. One more here, getting under both of those loops, yarn over, pull up the loop. And since this is going to be the width of our ear warmer, and usually with Tunisian crochet we'll have a much longer hook, but since our ear warmer is not too wide, we can just do it on this normal 6.5 millimeter hook here. So now we'll want to do our return pass, and the way that we'll do that, making sure of course we have both of our loops here, we're going to yarn over and pull through 1 loop to start with the chain. Now we're going to yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. So here's 1 and 2 loops. We're going to pull through both of those. Yarn over, find the next 2 loops, and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way back until we have just 1 loop left on our hook. And that completes our foundation. It should look just like this. So a pretty kind of braided edge along the bottom, and then we have this series of vertical bars here. So these are our stitches that we're going to be working into. So now we want to do 2 rows of Tunisian simple stitch, and here's how we do that. So the first loop on our hook counts as a stitch, so we're going to skip this first vertical bar. We're going to insert our hook under the next vertical bar. So insert, yarn over, pull up the loop, and leave it on your hook. And make sure you do this fairly loosely so your work doesn't curl up on you too much. So there's 3, there's 4, and 5. We're going to do this all the way down the row, sorry. Insert, yarn over, pull up the loop. Insert, yarn over, and pull up the loop. And by the end, again, we should have 16. And for our very last stitch, we're going to rotate our work towards us, and we'll want to work under both loops here on the end. So insert your hook under both of those loops. There we go. Yarn over and pull up the loop, and we've got our 16 stitches back. So now we're going to do our return pass. Remember, that starts with a yarn over, pull through 1, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way back. Here we go. So that's our first row of Tunisian simple stitch done. So we've got our foundation here, and this is our first row. Now we'll do our next row. So remember, skipping this first vertical bar, we're going to insert under the next vertical bar, yarn over, pull up the loop, making sure we keep just even, somewhat loose tension. We're going to work all the way down and then follow that with our return pass. All right, now we're back at the beginning of our row. So we've got all of our rows to start. Now we're going to begin making our strips. So we have 16 stitches. We'll need to make 4 strips kind of coming out of this. So each of our strips will have 4 stitches. So for our first strip, we already have 1 stitch on our hook. We're going to pull up a loop in each of the next 3 stitches. So pull up a loop, pull up a loop, and pull up a loop. We're going to leave the rest of this row unworked. We'll get back to it later. So we've got 4 loops on our hook, and those are going to be the 4 stitches that we work with for this first strip. So now we're going to do a return pass right on these loops. So chain 1, then yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So this is how we'll start our first strip. And now we're going to Tunisian simple stitch across these loops, making sure you're working under both loops of that last stitch. Chain 1 for your return pass, yarn over, pull through 2, through 2, and through 2. One more time together, pull up a loop, the next stitch, the one after that, and then for our very last one, yarn over, pull through, chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, through 2, and through 2. So we can see that first strip already starting to emerge because we're going to braid 4 strips together. So you'll want to continue this first strip until it's about 25.5 inches long. And that's for kind of an average adult head. If you have a smaller head, you should probably do about 24.5 inches. Larger head, you should probably do about 26 to 26.5 inches. And the way that you'll measure that is going to be from the base right here. Once you think you have a long enough strip, you're going to place your tape measure right here at the base of your work and measure up. And once you have the length that you need, either 24.5, 25.5, or about 26.5 inches, then we'll be ready to move on. So keep working on this until you have your right length, and then join me and I'll show you how we'll finish off this strip and move on to the next one. For the sake of our tutorial, I'm not doing a full length ear warmer, but again, just make sure once you think you have enough, you're going to measure from the base of your ear warmer, so from that first foundation chain all the way up to the current row on your strip. So now that I've got the length that I'm going to do, and you should continue to the length that you're meant to do, I'm going to lift my hook up and out of my work, and I'm going to grab those 2 loops, and I'm actually going to pin them down with a stitch marker. I'm just going to slip a stitch marker right through that loop and lock it so that that stitch doesn't go anywhere, because I'm going to need to come back to it. And then I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just going to cut this right off here, leaving kind of a nice longish tail to weave in my ends later. So I'm going to tighten down a little bit because we're going to start our next strip. So we're going to go back to the beginning here. Remember, our first 4 stitches were for our first strip, and now we're going to start on our next strip. So I'm going to insert my hook into the next live stitch right here. Insert, I'm going to grab my yarn, leaving a nice long tail so I can weave in that end later. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to pull up a loop. And I'm going to do that in the next 3 stitches as well, so I have 4 stitches on my hook. So there's 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to go right back into working my Tunisian simple stitch for my strips, just like I did on my first strip. So you just want to complete this until you have the same number of stitches as your first strip. So for our return pass, yarning over, pull through 2, forward pass, pulling up a loop in those next 3 stitches, and following that with your return pass. There's 1, 2, and 3. So you're going to repeat that until you have the same number of rows as your first strip, and then for your third strip you're going to pull up loops in the next 4 live stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and for your last strip you're going to pull up loops in your last 4 stitches, which will be 1, 2, 3, and then your edge stitch here. You're going to work up your number of rows as your first strip, and then when you're done you're going to cut the yarn and just hold your loop with a stitch marker, and you're going to do that for each of your rows including your last row. So go ahead and work all of your strips. Make sure you've held down that last stitch with a stitch marker, and from there we're going to get into our braiding. So I've got my 4 strips here, and now it's time to start braiding. So we'll need something to kind of hold down the top of this so we can get a nice neat and tight braid. I like to use a clipboard. I find that works really well. You can also just weigh it down with a book or whatever you might have handy. So I'll just kind of clip the top of this here and lay it in front of me. So we're going to do just kind of a traditional classic 4-strand braid. And the way that I like to do that is I'm going to start by putting 1 over 2, then 3 over 4, and finally 4 over 1. And I want to kind of play around with this, keep that braid nice and tight, but not so tight that it buckles at the top. And we'll have an opportunity later to kind of play around with this too. So now I'm going to reset and do those 3 steps over again. So 1 over 2, 3 over 4, and 4 over 1. So you can see the braid starting to form, and as I go I'm just going to kind of adjust things here or there, but ultimately we just want to make sure our braid stays nice and flat. So again, resetting, we've got 1 over 2, just like that, 3 over 4, and then 4 over 1. And we'll want to do this as many times as possible because we want to make sure our braid doesn't have any holes in it. 4 over 1. I'm going to try and squeeze in 1 more. And again, just kind of finessing this, you can kind of put your finger in the middle, push it up, just making sure that those strands stay nice and flat. But see, that gave me a little bit of extra length down here to do another braid. So your strips are going to be way longer than mine, so you can do as many kind of repeats as possible. 1 over 2, 3 over 4, 4 over 1. Okay, that feels pretty good. All right, so now what I want to do, because I want to be able to kind of hold this in order, is I'm going to grab some more stitch markers and I'm going to just connect between my strips. So I'm going to connect 1 and 2 together, just dropping my stitch marker through. This doesn't have to be precise because we're going to take these out later. 1 over 2, 1 connected to 2, 2 connected to 3. Definitely important to keep these in order to keep our braid looking good. And then 3 connected to 4. We got a lot of stitch markers in here. 3 connected to 4, just like that. Okay, now we can take this off of here, and we'll want to flip around and come back to this area. Going to tighten down again so we can do this part together. We're going to need to grab our crochet hook and our yarn. And what we're going to do is start working across here. Now, here's how we do that. Still making sure everything stays in order. We're going to get our first strip on the far right. We're going to grab that loop that's marked here and put our hook into it. We're going to drop out that stitch marker, pull that loop down a little bit, then grab our yarn, go into our next stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and into that last stitch on that strip and pull up a loop. So now we've hooked 1 to 2, so we can go right into our next strip. We're going to grab that loop that's marked, drop the stitch marker out, put that loop onto our hook, so that counts as a stitch now. We're going to grab our working yarn again and pull up loops in the other stitches on that strip. So now we have 8 stitches. We're going to go to the next strip, which is connected here. Pull up that loop, drop it out, put it on our hook, tighten it down just a little, grab our working yarn, pull up loops in the other stitches on that strip. Make sure it's not too tight. We want to maintain even tension just like we have been before. Let's get to that last stitch. There you are. There you go. Pull up that loop. One more strip. Pulling that loop up off the stitch marker. Put it onto the hook. Tighten down just a little bit. Grab our working yarn and pull up loops in the remaining stitches on that strip. There we go. So now we're back to 16 stitches and we've closed off all of our strips. Don't worry about these stitch markers right now. We'll get those in just a little bit. So now we're going to do our return pass just like we've done before. Chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, through 2, through 2. We're going to do that all the way across our work. Through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. There we go. So we've closed this up seamlessly, absolutely no seams at this point. And now we're going to do just 1 more row of our forward pass here. So we're going to pull up a loop in that second stitch right there, yarn over, pull through, and go all the way across. So we'll have 16 total stitches. And our return pass, starting with a chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, through 2, through 2, all the way back. Okay. Now the last thing that we want to do as far as actually crocheting is we're going to bind off these stitches doing the slip stitch bind off rather. So insert into that second stitch, yarn over and pull through. Make sure you don't do this too tight because we don't want this edge tightening up on us because we're going to sew it to our first edge to make the back of our ear warmer. So I'm inserting under both loops, yarn over, pull through. Just don't pull these too tight. Slip stitches have a tendency to tighten up on us, and we don't want that here. Pull through. Just pulling right through. Last one, yarning over and pull through. I'm going to pull that loop up. Now I'm going to grab my scissor. I'm going to cut one of my lengths of yarn just long enough to weave in the ends, and then I'm going to cut my second length of yarn, leaving a nice long tail because I'm going to use that to just sew my ends together to close up my ear warmer. So then I'm going to pull these loops, both of these loops, up and out of my work. So this is a good point to weave in your ends. If we flip this over, we've got ends here at the top from all of the ends of our loops. And then we've got ends here at the bottom from when we picked up stitches to start our strips. So this is a good time to weave in your ends. So I'm going to do that. I'll show you how I weave in just a couple of them to give you a feel for it. So I've got two ends here. I'm going to put them onto my yarn needle. Just like that. I'm going to work them together. And then on the back of our work, we've got these bumps here. So I'm just going to work under a couple of bumps. And one of the things I like about acrylic yarn is it really loves to stick to itself. So I'm just going to weave this through a few bumps. You don't have to do a lot. Like these loops aren't going to go anywhere. Just like that. So now that end is woven in. I'm going to cut right at the base of that, and then that's gone. You can't see it anymore. So we're going to go ahead and weave in all of our ends and then come back and I'll show you how we're going to finish things up. All right, so now I've woven in all of my ends. The only one I have left is the nice long end that I left after my slip stitch bind off. So what we'll want to do now is we're going to mattress seam these ends together. So I decided to go for a mattress seam to make it nice and even. You can also do a whip stitch seam, whatever is easiest for you. So to do the mattress seam, we just need this end here. Maybe get some of these fuzzies out the way. And we're going to need our tapestry needle. So we're just going to put this end onto our tapestry needle. And we're going to start this mattress stitch. I'm going to see if I can... here we go. Just zoom down a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So my end is coming from the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is find the last two stitches on my left side. I'm going to go down into this stitch and then up into just the back loop of the next stitch. And now I'm going to do the same on the right side. I'm going to go down through the back loop of the first stitch, up through the back loop of the second stitch. Now I'm going to go down through the back loop of that stitch that I went through already on the left side, and then up through the next stitch. Then back on the opposite side, we're going to go down through the stitch that we stitched through already, just through the back loop, and then up through the back loop of the next stitch. And that's how we do the mattress stitch. And that gives you a nice sturdy seam, but it's nearly invisible. So back to the left side, we're going to go down and then up. And then back on this side, we're going to go down and then up. So after we've got a few stitches worked, now this is the magic. So we can see these loops here from where we strun back and forth. We're going to hold firmly here, and I'm going to hold firmly down at the base. I'm going to pull. And it pulls it nice and snug together. All right, and then we're going to keep going. So down and up on this side, down and up on this side. Again, down and up, down and up. We're going to repeat that all the way up our ear warmer. Join me back here when you've completed that, and we'll take a look at our finished work. And here we go. That pretty mattress stitch seam right there in the back. And then we're going to just weave in this final end. So I'm just going to kind of flip to the wrong side of my work, and then work under a few of these loops. Just like that. Grab my scissors, cut that end off. And my ear warmer is complete. Of course, mine's way tinier than yours. I don't even think this could fit a baby, but she cute though. Look at that braid. And you can just kind of massage it a little bit into a shape that feels good. But that's it for the Tunisian Crochet Braided Ear Warmer. This again was made with that pretty Red Heart Heat Wave yarn that's currently available at Joann. You can find even more video tutorials on my channel, and please check out my blog tlycblogs.com for more tutorials, unboxings, and product reviews. Thank you again so very much. See you next time.